find what you're passionate about, find what you care most about, and do something with it.
Welcome to Agency for Change, a podcast from KidGlov that brings you the stories of changemakers who are actively working to improve our communities. In every episode, we'll meet with people who are making a lasting impact in the places we call home.
Hey everyone, this is Lynn Weinman, President and Chief Strategist at KidGlov. Welcome to another episode of Agency for Change. If you have listened to our podcast before, and I hope you have, you know that at KidGlov, we strongly believe running a business is not just about making money, but also about making a positive impact in the world. If you're new here, we call this being a purpose-driven business, and it is at the foundation of everything we do here. Today's guest shares this belief so much that she serves as the executive director of Good Business Colorado, a grassroots organization of employers and entrepreneurs working to build a prosperous economy, equitable communities, and a sustainable environment within the region. I cannot wait to hear her story. Debra, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Lynn. Really appreciate it.
Oh, I just can't wait to talk to you and hear about all the great things that you're doing. But I'd love to start with you just taking a minute to tell us more about the organization and the work that you're doing.
Sure, yeah. Good Business Colorado is an organization for values-driven business owners that are working to build a more prosperous, equitable, and sustainable Colorado. So we've got members from across the state. We have over 460 members in 23 counties.
Nice.
Across the state. And the glue that holds us all together in a wide range of industries with a very different amounts of business experience and success and acumen and wide range of demographics. But the thing that glues us all together is that belief that you can be a good business and be profitable and still take care of your employees and be an environmental steward. Make sure your community is taken care of in your operations. So that's kind of who we are and what I say makes our members among the best businesses in the world.
I love that. I love that you just said that too, because KidGlov is very proud to be part of the glue ball that is Good Business Colorado. And I've never spoken those words before. So there you go.
Well, as a relatively new member, we're so grateful to have you involved and to figure out how we can help you make your values real in the world.
Absolutely. What I love about being a value-based business is it just feels good. It makes getting up and coming to work every day feel good. But it's interesting how often I get the question, can you balance being profitable and values driven? And I find that to be such an interesting question. I mean, the answer is yes. And usually doing the right thing is not a bad thing for business. So I'm sure you're finding the same thing with your organization and your members.
Yeah, it's really interesting because if you go really far back in time, to be able to be a business, to get a charter that authorized you to do business in the United States, you had to state your benefit to society.
I did not know that, Debra. That was a thing a long time ago.
Yeah.
Wow.
Like back in the day, like to get an actual charter to do business with the United States of America, you actually had to prove that you were providing value to its citizens. And so we, I would say we often say this is not the leading edge, the bleeding edge. This is, yes, it's the future because it has to be, but it's also the past. And not just even back from that requirement phase, but, it's very intuitive that businesses that take care of their employees keep their employees, that businesses that take care of their environment are going to be recognized and seen for that. Nobody wants to buy a product that is responsible for massive destruction,
Amen.
Whether it be human life or the environment.
Amen.
It's not even a choice anymore. People, employees, they want to feel good about the place where they spend the majority of their time. People are being way more savvy about how they spend their money and really voting with their dollars. So it's really no longer an option. Operating in the triple bottom line is becoming the norm, and the businesses that fail to or refuse to do that are going to be left in the dust.
Yeah. Debra, I love everything that you're saying. Can I have you clarify one point for me? Because I have heard and used the phrase triple bottom line a lot of times, but would you mind explaining that maybe for people who haven't heard it before?
Thank you. And that was such a nice way to say don't use acronyms, stuff that people. Bottom line stands for people, planet, profit.
Yeah.
And at Good Business Colorado, we talk about the prosperous economy, equitable communities, and sustainable environment. But it's that integration, right? That you're not just looking at that total net income that oftentimes in business we look at for what is our total financial profit or loss. And it's, I think, especially important because our laws have facilitated and we've gotten in this habit of externalizing the cost of so much, whether it's subsidizing wages for people who aren't being paid a livable wage, whether it's the government entities that are tasked with cleaning up after our manufacturing, that we keep the profits as business, we keep the profits, but we externalize the cost and the cost of doing environmental regeneration.
Right.
And so it's really about changing the practice of looking at the triple bottom line to incorporate all the things that go into the making of the product or service, not just the things that show up on a balance sheet.
Yeah. I think too, a lot of us know intuitively that it's the right thing to do. You referenced this earlier, but I'm seeing more and more research from a lot of sources about how both consumers and employees want to align with organizations that are making a positive impact. They're using their dollars, they're using their time and talents in return for a job. But more and more research is really, I think, leaning into the fact that this is the right path. So I'm really curious, how specifically does Good Business Colorado work with the community to do this work to create a more fair and sustainable economy? What does that look like?
Yeah. Well, again, I think it goes to voting with your dollars. So everybody loves small business, right?
Yeah.
But when it comes time to prioritize that in their purchasing, I think it's oftentimes we go for the fast and easy of Amazon. Whereas sometimes you have to do a little more work to find a local vendor that can provide usually a higher quality product. But most importantly, that money stays in the community instead of being siphoned off to Amazon headquarters.
Right.
So for us, it's really about empowering the community and making it easy for them to align their values with their purchasing behavior. So everything we try and do to promote our members so that people are, trained. So if you're looking for a restaurant, go first to Good Business Colorado members. If you need a mechanic, well, guess who's not going to screw you? I mean, there's lots of great, honest mechanics out there, of course, but I think one value of shopping GBC is that these are businesses that are part of a community of values-driven business owners, and they care deeply about that. We try and make it as easy as possible for the community to share, to actually put action behind their intention to support small business. We work really hard to make sure that we have members that can service a broad range of needs. Our vision is to someday be able to have a Good Business Colorado member for every possible product and service that most every product and service that a conscientious consumer would ever want and need.
That is a great dream. I love that dream. I love your collaboration. And I just want to make sure all of our listeners know we're going to make sure to have a link to your website and a link to your list of vendors, your local vendors for Colorado, in the show notes on the KidGlov website so that that's very easily accessible. And we'll make sure to hit that web address later as well. So you're doing a lot of collaborating. You have a lot of organizations that are members that are coming onto your list. But I'm curious about what other kinds of partnerships do you have?
Yeah, thank you. And that's a great question. So from the get-go, GBC has really been about the ecosystem. And so we're a player in multiple ecosystems. So I would say the partners that we work most frequently with are other organizations that serve business owners across the state. We have really strong partnerships with organizations like Local First and Durango, Partnership for Community Action, and the Salida Chamber of Commerce, and Casey County, the Pueblo Latino Chamber of Commerce, and Pueblo. All in all, we have over 75 organizations that specifically serve business owners.
That's a
because
lot.
We believe, yeah. Well, and honestly, the pandemic changed a lot of things. Organizations that we've been reaching out to for years suddenly realized, like, we have to pivot right now to serve our business owners, and we can't do it all. We don't know what to do. So let's come to the table and do it together. And so really since then, we started with the pandemic, just throwing together as much programming as we could to help our business owners navigate this uncharted territory. Changes overnight to rules and regulations, the landscape of how you can retain your employees, what the nuances of getting all these sources of funding were. And so we've been able to maintain those partnerships that were really jump-started with the pandemic, because that need and benefit of collaboration never goes away. So oftentimes, instead of creating our own programming, if there's an organization that already is doing it really well, we just promote what they're doing instead of trying to do it ourselves. I think that's really important in an ecosystem where the need is so much greater than any of our group's capacity. We just have to collaborate and really leverage our expertise and resources.
It's such a good principle. There's really, from an association standpoint, there's no need to compete, right? But to collaborate and make each other stronger and leaning into your area of expertise, because it's impossible for every association to have all of the resources and talent and expertise needed to cover such a broad range. So I love the fact that you've got those partnerships, and over 75, I think you said that's a big ecosystem right there. And each of those 75 are touching so many businesses. I think that's fabulous.
Yeah. We also work closely with a variety of government agencies in rulemaking and implementation of new laws. And we have a whole range of community partners we work with in the policymaking space as well.
As a business owner myself too, I find it's impossible to stay on top of all of the issues that are going on. And so I appreciate organizations that can help me with that, advocate on my behalf, and educate me on, hey, you really need to start paying attention to this. And so that leads me to my next question. So what are the big policy issues that Good Business Colorado is currently focused on, and what kind of impact do you hope to have?
So every year we survey our members. So we're a fiercely member-led organization. And so every year we ask our members to take our annual policy survey, and we call, we text, we email until we get that 51+ participation rate that lets us know we actually have a mandate to pursue these priorities. Every year, our priorities are set by our members, and then we have a policy council. It's not pay to play. Anyone who's a member of GBC can apply to be on the policy council. They receive honorariums and for their time, so that's not a barrier to participation. And they really do the deep work of vetting the policies and selecting the specific bills where they think we can have the greatest impact and best align with our values. I wanted to tell you a bit about the process before saying the specific policies.
I like that you told me about the process. It's not just willy-nilly. We're not just picking numbers or things out of the air. It's not just Debra's favorite issues, but I love the phrase being a communicator. I wrote down when you said, We are fiercely member led. I love that so much. That makes me even more excited about being a member.
Well, thank you. And it's so true. And, the double-edged sword of that is we ask a lot of our members, as you've probably already seen, Lynn, like we're right now setting our educational programming. And not only did we ask members to submit ideas for content, we then asked members to vote on which content would be most valuable.
I appreciate that because as somebody who does presentations, there's nothing worse than presenting in front of a group that your topic doesn't really interest them and you spent a lot of work and time in front of an empty room. And likewise, as a member of organizations, you want to look at that programming calendar. That's what keeps your members really engaged as well. They want to look at that programming calendar and go, yeah, they get me. These are the things I want to know more about.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly why we do it. So that applied to the policy.
Yeah, let's hear it. I'm really curious to know. What are the big ones that you want to talk about?
Sure. Yeah. So climate ranked as one of as the single highest priority.
Yeah.
In our survey this year. And so there's a range of bills that are geared at reining in greenhouse gas emissions, to new energy improvements, and even studying workforce transitions to other industries. So we're not leaving behind the people whose livelihood depends on the extractive industries. And that's you can find the details of the specific bills on our website. And there's, a whole suite, 7 or 8 of these specific environmentally related bills, everything from agricultural producers' use of agrovoltaics.
Oh my.
Again, that supporting the workforce development in the new energy economy, as well as helping transition from the old. One that crosses over from our top priorities is the big land use bill. You're hearing a lot about it. Certainly it's not perfect in its current form, but our members really selected this as an issue that really gets at the heart of affordable housing as well as environmental impact. And those two things are really, linked in a way that you just can't separate out. Health. So DE&I equity, advancing equity, is also an initiative that it was the number 2 overall priority on our annual member survey. And so certainly there are bills that are specifically aimed at increasing equity. So there's a bill that takes aim at age discrimination in employment by just simply prohibiting people from asking for a graduation year on their initial application.
It's pretty easy to do the math and figure it out when you have a graduation year in there. Yes,
exactly. And there's so many other ways for people to get it. Does this person have the skills to be successful in this job? But when we talk about equity, we really are looking at when we have policies for things that we know need to be done, how do we do them in a way that we don't leave behind the most vulnerable business owners? And that's a really important thing for us because we've learned the hard way that sometimes what is the greater good can have tremendously disproportionate burden on our most slim margin businesses. So that's really when we talk about equity and policy, it's not just about passing policies that advance equity, but making sure that equity is a central component of all of our policy analysis and that we're not supporting policies that are for the greater good, but don't have a plan. And with a plan comes resources.
Yeah.
So if they're not providing funding and technical support to support the most vulnerable business owners in being compliant with the law, we're not going to support it.
That's a really good point because that for a small business, that extra funding required to comply or change in workflow or that extra employee that you might need to hire or retrain, that can be crushing.
Exactly. So it's not, we don't want to be in this situation where you find, sometimes some mainstream business organizations, it's kind of an equation. It's right. If you do this, the sky will fall, or you can't do this. We know this
Yes.
is a problem, but X isn't the solution, but never put it. So that's not it. But it really is being attentive to making sure when we put out solutions that they really work for everybody.
I appreciate that. Thank
Yeah.
you for that overview, Debra. Debra, a bit ago, you mentioned DE&I being a top priority of your members. I know you're launching a demographic task force to advance your work in this area. Could you tell me a bit more about that and the why behind it?
Absolutely. Yeah. Thank you, Lynn. So, as I mentioned, Good Business Colorado is fiercely member led. And so we try and apply that to all areas of our work. And so we had developed an equity roadmap some time ago that was developed by staff with board contributions and participation. And it was great and it was important. And we implemented the first part of that roadmap, which was doing some training for our membership and our greater community on equity. And we also did an assessment as part of that first phase of the roadmap. And what we learned from the assessment was we have to be very careful that our efforts to diversify our membership and the reasons for which we know that we can only achieve our greatest ambitions when we have the right people at the table. Because being an entrepreneur in Pueblo is a very different experience than being an entrepreneur in Sterling or Fort Collins. Just like the experience of being a Black entrepreneur is a very different experience of being white entrepreneur, and the access to capital and the barriers that you are forced to overcome as a BIPOC business owner. And so we know that to do our best work with policymaking and to best support businesses on their journeys to being a better business, we have to have all of the voices represented at the table. And at the same time, because right now, I think especially, there's so much buzz around DEI and so much, that might be best of intentions, but people just trying to check boxes instead of really do the work. We have to be really careful that we're not being perceived as or unintentionally tokenizing people, because whether it's perceived or actual, the damage is done. And so we decided that by launching a demographics task force, we could really look into, again, using that broad life experiences, bringing together a group from very different life experiences to look at how we are collecting demographic information and how we're using it, because nobody's as simple as a box, right? Everybody has so many unique intersecting identities. And we really do our best to support our members and serve our greater membership and community and advance our mission when we look at everybody as a unique individual and all of their different identities that converge to bring forward their life experience and what they can contribute to both our policy work and our peer-to-peer learning for helping businesses on their journey to being better businesses. So the demographic task force is kind of limited in scope, really to dig into how are we collecting those demographic information? What are we going to use it for and why and how? And are we doing it in a way that really does justice to the complexities of people's identities, with the goal of that group then kind of laying the foundation for an entire rewrite of our equity roadmap that is written by our members this time around.
What I am so excited about is this sounds like such good foundational work. And with the great collaborative networks and partnerships you're involved in, I think it has the opportunity to really impact a lot of different people, a lot of different organizations and businesses. So kudos to you for doing the work. And then I'm also going to admit, as we talk about being fiercely member-led, it also is a call to arms for me as a member to make sure I'm worthy of being part of that fierce member leadership and stay active and engaged as well. So a lot of this work is about hearing different voices. And I'm just really curious, as an organization and as you think about civic engagement, what are some of the ways you encourage voices to be heard and encourage this diversity and inclusion and make sure marginalized groups are represented?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Lynn. And also just to say, we never want it to feel burdensome to be a GBC member. Because
I'm like, wow, I hope I'm up for this.
Yeah, no, and people step up and back as their business flow allows. You know, when we have restaurant owners, when they are opening a new location, sometimes they check out, they step back a little bit till they get their restaurant open. And life happens. People take care of sick parents, sick children. So GBC is never intended to be a burden.
Okay,
really, it's just the criteria for membership is that belief in business as a force for good. And then we ask members to show up in the ways that's meaningful to them.
Sounds good.
So if we're not creating the opportunities that are right to advance your business and your business goals, then we need to go back to the drawing board and find the right opportunities. But we really want it to be a rewarding.
Absolutely, Debra. I just want to make sure I'm worthy of being a member, which I'm confident that I am, and
Yes.
You've made me feel confident and accepted as well.
At Good Business Colorado, we always start with the assumption that people have no experience in civics, because the truth of the matter is, I think some belief that a business owner comes out of the chute knowing how to engage in civics, and in our experience, that just isn't the case. Most of our members, when they go to the Capitol with Good Business Colorado, it's the first time that they've been there. Oftentimes when people are doing a press conference or writing an op-ed or an LTE or testifying on a bill that's important to them, it's the first time they've ever done it. And I think our system is not made to be accessible. It is set up with a variety of barriers that make it challenging. Our approach is always to meet people where they're at and walk them on their journey from wherever they're at to what their next level looks like. And it can be very different. Everyone can level up their engagement. We have members that have gone from never stepping foot in the Capitol to they find a bill that's really important to them. And so they testify on that bill. And then as a result of that bill, they create a task force to study the impact of that policy. And that member can then be on that task force. And so we've seen a couple times where we have members like Edwin with Zomama. You know, he advocated for the paid family and medical leave. And then he was appointed by the Senate majority to be on the task force that studied what it would look like to implement paid family and medical leave. And then he participated in the amicus brief when we had to defend the paid family and medical leave in the court. So many different ways for people to engage in policymaking at the state level, regardless of what their current experience is, regardless of what they're passionate about. If somebody is interested and willing to be part of it, there's a way to engage, and that can be customized depending on what it is you care about and what your capacity is and what you get joy from. Not everybody loves doing media interviews, but some people do. So creating opportunities where people can speak to the media about the things they're doing in their business that are really exemplary, or why there's a barrier to being the business they want to be, and how we could pass a law that would help eliminate that barrier. The opportunities are endless, and our approach is always meet people where they're at and let them know what the levers are. What are the points of influence? And do it together, because there's nothing that we teach people to do that they can't do on their own. But it's so much more fun and fulfilling to do it as part of a group.
And you have much more confidence when you do it as part of the group. I liken business ownership a little bit to parenting, because you aren't going to know everything you need to know when you start. You are going to figure it out along the way, and people are going to help you and reach out to you, and you're going to find resources. So I appreciate that you help businesses take baby steps in the civic engagement arena as well. So here's kind of a big question for you. Why should values-driven business owners consider joining Good Business Colorado?
I think we hear from members when we ask them, why have you joined GBC, or what's the greatest value you get? The number one thing we hear is about the community.
Yeah.
People want to be connected to other business owners that share their values. They want to do business with them.
Yeah.
When they troubleshoot, they don't want to go, like when I had my tech company, I stopped engaging my advisors for my tech company because I know when I'm asking them to think about an issue, they're thinking about it in one diameter, and that's how to maximize profit. When I want to do problem solving with people who share my values, I want to get better. I want to get better outcomes by doing problem solving with people who share my values. So
Yeah.
I think it's the community of peer support to trade and to be really honest about things that don't work and to have a community where you can troubleshoot that. And then I think, the ability to be part of something bigger than yourself. I think that there's other organizations that serve values-driven business owners a lot in terms of working on their business practices. But GBC is really for a space for bold business owners that say, I want to use my stature as a business owner
Yes.
to make my values real in the world. I want to be a part of a campaign that's not going to just change things for my business, but for my great-grandchild's business. Those are the type of people who join GBC. They're not just the doers. Like all business owners are doers by virtue of the fact they started their own business.
You have to be, right? You have to be willing to be a jack of all trades, at least for a bit.
Exactly, and that's great. I think the next level is for our members who want to be part of a community that wants to do better together and to do better on a systematic level.
Got it. I hear the passion in your voice as you talk about these issues, which makes me want to ask you a personal question. And that is just, how did your path lead you to this place, to being the executive director of Good Business Colorado?
Yeah, thanks, Lynn, for that question. So by chance, certainly. And when I say chance, I mean, it's all of my past experience. I had a tech company myself. About 12 years, I met my business partner right out of college. We were actually in a class together and we launched our business. We actually were trying to use technology to bridge the digital divide. So before the term social enterprise was really popular, I feel like that's what we were, without even knowing there was a term for it. But those businesses have been around for forever. Well, we definitely found our share of uphill battles, including getting funding. And for the first 10 years or so, I did a lot of moonlighting, working second jobs.
Yeah.
And the last job that I did moonlighting was organizing businesses around the statewide ballot initiative to increase the minimum wage to $12 by 2020. And that was kind of the convergence of my passion for organizing and economic justice with my own personal entrepreneurial journey. After that campaign, I was getting texts and calls and emails from the businesses that have been part of it saying, what are we going to do next? We want to keep working together. And I mean, I think that was really, for most in our world, it was a pretty dark time, the 2016 election. And so people were just really longing for community and a sense of meaning, a way to fight back against the darkness that was impeding, to be quite honest. I don't know how else to say it. And so a small group of us started meeting regularly to talk about what it would look like to start an organization for values-driven business owners that wanted to say, hey, Big Chamber, you don't speak for me. I actually think that raising the minimum wage or providing access to paid family and medical leave would be good for my business. We started Good Business Colorado in October 2017 with 52 founding members. And
that's honestly quite a few founding members. Good for you for having that kind of support from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, and it's amazing that I would say the majority of those businesses are still members that are active today and
That's
have
great.
really helped to grow the organization because, that fire never goes away. You've got it, Lynn, you know it. And, to be a part of a community where everyone shares that, it means something. And,
Right.
People step up and back as their business allows, but they want to remain part of a community that aligns with their values.
Yep. All right. I've got another personal question for you because I read somewhere But you've done something pretty spectacular that is in support of women and moms. And this podcast is going to air right before Mother's Day in 2023. But tell me about tennis and being pregnant.
Yeah, but thank you, Lynn. So yes, I did. I mean, I played tennis growing up and in high school, and then competitively for some years. I ended up winning the Colorado State Open when I was pregnant with my kiddo. To be fair, that's for women's tennis. So like people who know tennis know there's a system, and 5-0 is like teaching pro. So not like that. Not
Okay,
like
all right.
I didn't win any money or anything.
Still, I think it's amazing.
Yeah, it was pretty awesome to do pregnant, nonetheless.
Good for you.
You know, I had some people would say I was cheating because I had 2 players, right? It's like 2 on 1.
You should have been in the duel. Yeah. I love that because I think it's that kind of determination and strength that also probably really helped make you good at what you're doing right now. And kind of leaning into that, what advice would you have for other leaders who want to make a difference in the world?
I think you have to be honest with yourself and what matters to you. And that very well may or may not align with what's popular at the time.
Yeah.
Or what your parents or your best friend, but to be true to yourself and to really honor your own journey, I think is what minimizes resentment and regret and maximizes your ability to live your best life is when you truly, truly not just listen to, but honor and pursue what is in your heart of hearts.
That is beautiful, beautiful advice. I'm going to ask you another question that's kind of in the same vein. This is my favorite question. Everybody who listens to Agency for Change knows that I am inspired by motivational quotes. I am lucky in that I get to speak to so many inspirational people like you. And I'm hoping you can give us a few of your own words of wisdom to inspire our listeners.
Yeah. Well, in addition to what I said previously, I think that what else? So I think truly following what's in your heart of hearts. I think in terms of civic engagement, find what you're passionate about, find what you care most about, and do something with it. You don't have to be everything to everyone. And of course, if you try, you will fail. But find the thing that means the most to you and do something about it. For me, when I was pregnant was also when we started Good Business Colorado. And right when we started Good Business Colorado, we were approached about paid family and medical leave, and having just given birth myself, the thought of a woman being forced to go back to work 3 days after having a baby is literally a crime against humanity.
Yeah.
And I am passionate about paid family and medical leave because now I've had that experience of giving birth. And I can't comprehend, how we're the only country in the world, with the exception of Papua New Guinea, but any other country besides Papua New Guinea, they have paid family and medical leave. It's just us in Papua New Guinea. And so I think the advice I would say is whatever issue it is that is most impacted your life, that is most meaningful to you, do something about it. It doesn't have to be grand. It doesn't have to be something worthy of a Nobel Prize, Peace Prize, but you will get so much satisfaction, I think, out of doing something that is meaningful to you, that will have an impact beyond you.
Debra, that's beautiful. I love it. Thank you for that. And it's so authentic. It weaves into all of the comments that you have made today. So for our listeners who would like to find out more, who would like to get to that great list of Good Business Colorado businesses, how can they find you?
Yes, thanks so much, Lynn. So the Good Business Colorado website is goodbusinesscolorado.org, and there's a join tab. And, we have We, again, are really into eliminating barriers, of course. So you'll see that the form are basically just to test that you're are people, that you're, that a good fit, the values alignment is there. And it'll ask you about what you care about and how you want to be engaged. Because again, business owners are so incredibly busy. It's our job to be judicious with your time. And that means making sure that the opportunities we put in front of you to make your values real in the world align with the things you care about and the capacity you have to take action on them. So it's just a quick form that helps us collect that information. And then membership dues, we have a sliding scale, pay what makes sense for your business, because we never want that to be a barrier to a good business joining our community. And that's it. If you want to see who our current members are, and especially for all you out there, even if you don't own a business, but you want to make your values real in the world by contributing to businesses that care about the environment and their employees, you can visit our member directory. And yeah.
That's great. We will, once again, we'll have that linked in the show notes on the KidGlov website. And I can attest to the fact that when you hit the link button, the process to join is really fairly easy. And I thought your due structure was also very reasonable and attainable as well. So, Debra, I have loved this conversation. Even as a member, I've loved learning more about the organization and how it was founded. And as we wrap up this time together today, I just like to close with what's the most important thing you would like our listeners to remember about the work that you're doing?
The most important thing that we want listeners to remember about the work we're doing is anybody can do it.
Yeah.
Anybody can be the change that they want to see in their community. And it starts first with our individual practices. Are we doing the things that align with our values? As Good Business Colorado, again, it comes back to purchasing in alignment with your values. On the voluntary level, there's that piece. And then anybody can have an impact on the policies that govern our lives, our businesses, our communities. We did our day at the Capitol a few weeks ago, and we had this remarkable woman who's starting a business, who's Colorado native. She said, I think she drove past the Capitol for like 20 years or something every day on her way to work. And it never had occurred to her that she could go into that building and meet with the people who she elected.
Right. Who she's paying for. Yes.
She elected to represent her and to serve her community.
Yeah.
And so, I think that there's these kind of barriers that seem that they're insurmountable, but especially when you do it in partnership with other groups, it doesn't matter if it's ours or you're an animal activist, if there's an animal rights group, there's so many things, whether it's a healthcare advocacy, but to pick whatever the issue is that you're passionate about and find a good group of people that are passionate about it too, and make that personal practice statewide law, go federal.
I love it.
Yeah. Anyone can do it, and everybody should.
That is a great place to leave it, Debra. I have loved this conversation. I truly believe the world needs more people like you, more organizations like Good Business Colorado. And I just thank you for taking time to talk with us today.
Well, thank you so much, Lynn, for having me and for being part of the Good Business Colorado community. There are absolutely members like you that make us what we are. You are who we are. So thank you for being a part of it.
Awesome.
We hope you enjoyed today's Agency for Change podcast. To hear all our interviews with those who are making a positive change in our communities, or to nominate a changemaker you'd love to hear from, visit KidGlov.com at KidGlov.com to get in touch. As always, if you like what you've heard today, be sure to rate, review, subscribe, and share. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.